I am not in the owner's book. The reason is that I'm not yet successful. I hope to be in her next book, but we'll see. So actually, right now, my perspective is to share with you some of my journeys as a very young startup founder, and what it's like to be kind of in the beginning of everything. I know what the goal is. The goal is to be somebody like Sunny. Now I'm still in the very beginning of that journey. So I have just 2 points to share. The first is that when you're starting a project or your startup, clarity of purpose is very important. In most cases, purpose isn't about making money or to maximize return to shareholders. It's actually about changing status quo for the better. For example, you all know Tesla, okay, and you all know Elon Musk is extremely successful. But if you look at the mission statement, it isn't to make as many cars as possible. It isn't to make as much money as possible. It is, I quote, to accelerate the advent of sustainable transport by bringing compelling mass market electric cars to market as soon as possible. In other words, it's sustainable transport. It's not making money. Money is the consequence of this purpose. Okay, and if you start a company with money as the first purpose, very likely you'll burn out. And this purpose should excite you so much that it keeps you up at night. You know how sometimes before you go on a big trip, you're excited, so excited that you can't fall asleep. You may be going to Iceland, you may be going to Egypt, you may be graduating tomorrow, you may be proposing tomorrow, I don't know. But you're so excited that you can't fall asleep. That's how running a startup should be like. Of course, you lose a lot of sleep if you go on like that, so you need to take that with a grain of salt. And ideally, this purpose comes from personal experience. So for example, if you're an academic, you can invent a startup that lets you cite citations in a better way so that people don't reinvent the wheel. For example, I did anthropology in the UK, and then I did a study abroad in the US, in Chicago, and what I found was actually the scholars were talking about exactly the same thing, but they just weren't citing each other. So because they thought that nobody had written about it, so they think they're the first one, but actually somebody across the ocean did it. There must be a better way of doing this. Or if you're a medical student, perhaps you can start a biotech startup, right, to treat things like Alzheimer's, lupus, mental depression, or you can even start something like an elderly home. One idea I like a lot recently is an elderly home that combines elderly care with childcare services. Okay, so what happens is parents send their kids to elderly homes, so the elderly people, they can take care of the children and get to re-engage their minds. Okay, and the children get to play with the elderlies, because the elderlies, guess what? They've done it before. They're really good at this. And as a result, both sides benefit, and then the middle class are free to, generate the income. This can also be a startup idea. In my case, I've been a sustainability researcher, as Leona mentioned, for the past 3 years, and I was tired. I was tired of people talking about things like renewable energy and recycling. I think that this is like the solution. They're talking about all these things, but they ignore the elephant in the room, which is that we're trapped in cycles of consumption. We just buy, we buy things we don't need, and then we throw them away and then we buy again. Think about it, when was the last time you used your electric guitar, right? Or your camera, or your step ladder? In fact, 90% of the stuff we own are unused 90% of the time. And at the same time, other people around you might have a need for that item. They just don't know who to ask and who to ask what. So our company really, our purpose is to create a world where nobody needs to buy everything they need. If you need a ski jacket for your next trip, you just go on a mobile app and you find through GPS who's the nearest owner, and then you just send them a request. And in return, you can share things that you don't use very often. It can be a tripod, it can be your architect set, it can be a video case. For us, we believe that individually we may be poor, but together we have everything we need. Together we have everything we need. That is the future that I want to create, and that's the future that keeps me up at night. So what's yours? What keeps you up at night? So that's point number one. Find an idea that you're so passionate about that it keeps you awake at night. My second point is a very quick one. Even though you should dream big, I believe that big ideas start small. So the classic image of a tech entrepreneur is somebody who sits in a dark room, coding away at night, 4 a.m. with tons of empty cans of Red Bull on one side and empty pizza boxes on the other side. So this is wrong. If you look at the most successful entrepreneurs, they are out there talking with their users. You've all heard of Airbnb. They're very successful right now. But what you may not know is that they started all the way back in 2007. And for the first 2 years, they weren't very successful. They had about 100 transactions per month. Now they have 100 transactions per half second. The CEO, Brian, he went so far in meeting his users that for a whole year, he stayed in his users' homes. Okay? He didn't have a home, he just went around and met all of the users, one by one. Or take this case of Carousel. Carousel is a buy-sell app in Singapore. In the beginning, before they were very successful, they're very successful now. In the beginning, they had to go personally to all of the flea markets and the handicraft markets, and they had to talk to the stall owners one by one and get them to use their app. In my case, I try to meet at least one user every day. This takes a lot of time and discipline, but I believe it pays off. So yesterday, I met a user for lunch. She just borrowed a portable fan. So right now, you know how Hong Kong people like having this portable fan. They just walk down the street and they just point it at themselves and they're looking very proud and happy. So she didn't have one, but she needed to go to Thailand and it was very hot. So she thought, rather than buying one, why don't I just borrow one from Gai Fong? So she did that, and she also borrowed a secondly, which is a Thai phrase book. So yesterday I met her for lunch, and she shared her experience with me, and then we took a selfie together. That one selfie generated at least 30 new users, because of her friends that heard about her story and heard about our ad for the first time. So 30 is not a lot, but for a startup like us that only has a couple of thousand people, 30 is huge. Okay, especially when you're going from 0 to 10,000. And this cannot be delegated, you must do this yourself. So that's point number 2. Roll up your sleeves, start small, and meet as many users as you want, as you can. And lastly, I want to leave you with a quote from a computer scientist called Alan Kay, who once said, "The best way to predict the future is to invent it." This is tough, because if you build something for the future, it doesn't work in the present. If you work in the present, it doesn't work in the future. So, good luck in inventing the future. Thank you.